But we begin with the Supreme Court's decision on carbon pricing. It ruled the federal carbon plan is constitutional. New Brunswick was originally one of the provinces fighting it, but in the end, it did implement its own carbon price plan. But could that province be in violation of the plan coming April 1st when the price is supposed to go up? Blaine Higgs is the Premier of New Brunswick. He's in Fredericton. Welcome back to the program, Premier.
Nice to be here.
Okay, so to start, I think we need you to sort something out for us, because the reports earlier today where it was that the legislation hadn't passed, the price at the pumps wasn't going to go up in New Brunswick because of the carbon tax, carbon pricing as of April 1st. And now we're hearing that, in fact, that wasn't the case. Maybe this was all just some confusion. So can you start by laying it out for us? What is happening with the price of carbon in New Brunswick when it comes to April 1st?
It will be going up, I think around 2 cents, and as of April 1st, we did put the legislation through to do that. So, we are on the pricing program. We're still discussions around how the money will be used and how we look at that benefiting the citizens of the province. But we are on the program at this stage.
Okay, because earlier today it seemed like this was going to be a nail biter. Was the federal government going to let you wait a few weeks when it came to actually putting this legislation in place? I don't want to belabor this point if you're going ahead with it, but just for everybody to understand, this all just came down to a little bit of confusion about which legislation had passed and which hadn't?
Yes, I think so. And it may have been to do with the carbon tax and the use of it in relation to a court challenge from the First Nations. So that may have been the confusing part. But as far as the overall carbon tax being rolled out and increased as of April 1st, that's happening.
Okay, let's talk about what that does and doesn't mean. The last year when you applied this carbon pricing scheme, you also cut prices at the pump, and you didn't completely make up for it, but you basically tried to soften the blow. You're not doing that this time. Is that because the federal government does not look too kindly on that particular plan?
Well, I think at the time we were going to be implementing about 7 cents a liter, and we thought that was too much in one stop. So we basically did reduce our provincial tax by 5 cents. But you're right. Going forward, I mean, it's going up over 2 cents or in that range, and we won't be offsetting that this year. And I think it's part of. We can't keep doing that in relation to our own provincial tax, but also a recognition it's a smaller amount, but it's going to keep coming. Costs are going to keep going up. And that is the biggest concern that we have is that this is going to spill over into the Clean Fuel Standards Act, the output-based pricing. All of our costs are going up dramatically, and we're very concerned about where that's going to be at the end of the day and the impact on industry and the impact on people's livelihoods.
But it is, of course, it's carbon pricing and rebates. So does that not give you some flexibility in terms of how you deal with all of that?
Well, it does in the case of the actual carbon tax on the fuel pricing. But in the case of the other points I mentioned that they're still to be rolled out, the clean fuel standards and the output-based pricing, those costs will come at us in a different way. Through electricity cost increases, general cost increase, not just related to tax, but the cost of businesses and industries to provide fuels. So we'll see an increase in commodity pricing that won't be offset as we go forward. It's more than just the carbon tax.
The line that the federal government often uses when it talks about the broader issue around this is that polluting isn't free. So is it not ultimately just It is the cost. It's the price of doing business and being cognizant of the impact of it.
Well, yes, you're correct in that sense, Catherine. But the nuance is how we transition into this economy, because we have a lot of industries here. We're a very highly dependent export province, and we have some big industries. I mean, our refinery is the largest in Canada, and it's exporting. 80% of its product is going to the U.S. So unless the U.S. have the same rules and standards, then we're in a situation where going into an uncompetitive position for our industry. And so the refinery is just one. But other industries that operate in Canada, and I'm not the only province that's up against this, will be at an uncompetitive disadvantage to other industries that we're competing with. And that's the challenge we face. So when we go off on our own without understanding the implications going forward, based on what looks right, but not understanding the kind of the consequential damages, that's the issue. In Europe, I understand they're looking at this program and basically saying, where's the market? Who are they competing with, our businesses? Because they don't want to shut them down.
I think it's probably worth noting that the change in U.S. administration and the signals that we've had from President Biden and even from associations of petroleum producers on the other side of the border suggest that changes are coming from the United States. But I do want to ask you more broadly, when we look forward to the future, Minister Wilkinson said on this program last night, there are more ambitious targets coming. He declined to quantify them just yet, refused to scoop himself, unfortunately, for power and politics. But knowing that that the federal government has more ambitious emissions reductions targets in mind, how do you react to that? Do you think that that's the right thing to do? Because it is what is necessary, the minister says, and scientists say, in order to meet our Paris climate targets.
Well, it's no question they're doubling down, but we are not a nation in isolation. And that's my concern, is that, yes, it may be a sell politically, and it may be something that we all believe that we must do in time, but we have to balance this out with how we manage our economy. As a province that is very dependent on transfer payments, equalization payments, and not that that's something I feel good about, but I'm very concerned about the formula going forward. That's a big reason why our deficit financing is as it has been presented in our budget, because something has to change. Our economy is not going to be able to be sustained the way it has been because we've relied so heavily on natural resources. I'm not saying we're not transitioning away from that. We're all in that transition mode. But let's not just shut the lights out and wander around the dark and hope for the best. Let's have a plan. And just a plan to double down and not understand the consequences of what that means to industry and our economy, that's my concern. I'm
going to be a bit crass here and ask you, Premier, if what you are saying is if you're going to increase the targets, federal government, you're also going to have to give us some more money. Is that the takeaway from what you just said?
Well, that's a fair comment, but where's the federal government going to get its money to keep putting to the provinces? I mean, we've been very appreciative of all the support through COVID, but that can't be a continual situation without money flowing in. And one of the provinces that had money flowing in to the federal coffers was Alberta. And look at Alberta's situation right now. So who else is contributing to the extent that Alberta has been for decades? That's my concern. Where's the gap going to be filled in such a quick, arbitrary enforcement of rules that we know we're going to get there, but what's the timeline? It can't be instantaneous, and it can't be a situation where we don't understand the consequences.
I think this could quickly turn into a discussion about investing in the green economy, as it is so often put. But your time is precious. We only have a few minutes left with you, and I don't want to let you go without asking you about COVID. Your province reported 13 cases in the Edmundston region today, 24 yesterday. There's a circuit breaker lockdown that's being put into effect. Is the Atlantic bubble, which was supposed to open April 19th, do you think that it might be in jeopardy?
Well, not at this point. We didn't go into a full lockdown. We basically went back to a red zone for us, and we did it in a region. Like, we didn't do it in the whole health zone. We did it in a region in the Northwest, and basically in one community. And we've been doing mass testing in that community, and right today the numbers still look fair. Our case count is up, but yet the numbers are less than they were yesterday. So we aren't seeing a huge breakout at this stage, and we haven't gone to a full lockdown, but over this weekend, mass testing will tell us where we're going to go. The Atlantic bubble, looking out to the 19th of April, I would not say is in jeopardy at this point, but every day in COVID is a new day, as we all know.
Yeah, no kidding. You talk about the Atlantic bubble. We look across the country. There are various jurisdictions that are loosening up. This comes at the same time of these variants of concern. We know that your chief medical officer, Dr. Jennifer Russell, has said they could be a game changer. So in closing, I'd just like your thoughts about loosening restrictions at the very same time that we see this new threat becoming more and more pressing.
Well, and certainly our position was to stay consistent with the health rules, and we've made some modifications a few weeks ago, and then we've had to rechange them for this particular area. But I think what we learned is that even with the variant, if public health rules are followed and maintained, we can manage this. Now, it's different. It's obviously more contagious, but my concern is the balancing act that we're all going through. So if we lock down too hard, people just get tired of COVID. They're all COVID weary and don't wait for vaccinations. We're just done with this. So we're trying to balance that. And in this scenario, we're saying, if we follow the rules here, vaccines will get there first. And it's a race, vaccines and the COVID and the variant. But I guess I'm still remain optimistic. And to date, our people in the province have certainly followed the rules. We've had some exceptions. We're kind of into that right now, but we're hope to manage our way through it.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time today, Premier.
You're very welcome. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.